Development Department for the City of North Miami. I'd like to welcome you all to Mayor Smith-Joseph's Business Quarterly Luncheon. This is the 8th luncheon in a series of luncheons that was started by our mayor last year in 2015. We typically assemble some of the area's top leaders in topics like innovation, related arts, business and culture. For today's topic, we're focusing on transportation. It's an exciting opportunity to be able to engage our businesses, to put partnerships together in both the public and private sector. We've seen business opportunities forged at sessions like these, so we're happy for the businesses that were able to join us today. And we have several elected officials in the audience. I'm going to have our mayor introduce those elected officials and properly welcome them. So without further ado, I'm going to bring our mayor, Dr. Smith-Joseph, forward to give you the official welcome to today's forum.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm supposed to talk for about 15 minutes, but we're kind of late. Should I go for 15? Well, this is a very exciting moment. It's the end of the year, and as you all know, I got elected about 2 years ago, and the city pretty much is on the move. That's why we have airplanes people here. We have going to be flying. We have trained people, and we have MPO people. We have the port tunnel people. And I must tell you, the city of North Miami has never been such an interesting city, either to visit or to live in. This quarterly business luncheon is the first of its kind in the entire city, and I came with this initiative after numerous brainstorming meetings with our CP&D director, Mrs. Yushadri Boyan, a young woman, and the city is really lucky to really have her. And I'd like to also recognize the presence of our former councilman, Mr. Glenn, who's in our midst. Thank you very much for coming, and I will see you over there. George Seraphin is also here with us. Thank you very much for coming. So pretty much, the whole idea behind this quarterly luncheon initiative is to see how we can take North Miami to a higher level, so we can actually attract, Fortune 500 businesses and attract developers, the dreamers, people who actually are on the forefront of urban development. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to present before a panel of experts when it comes to urban development, architects, urban developers, public administrators. It was the list of 8 mayors from the Eastern Seaboard, and I was the only one from the Miami-Dade County area. And I presented our plan that we have, which is a transit-oriented area. Those of you who are familiar with North Miami, it's the area by the railroad on 123rd. It's a quarter-mile radius transit-oriented district that we started. And as you all know, the FEC is coming all aboard, and North Miami, of course, is in the central part to take advantage of all these developments that are taking place. And after I presented that project to the panel, all the comments were very positive. They were very promising. They told us that North Miami, where we are located, pretty much we are poised to become a hub for transportation. And that's why when I got elected, after a couple of weeks of searching for possible projects and opportunities, I found out that the FEC came before us before I got elected, and our council rejected the idea of North Miami acquiring a train station. I said, really? People would be giving an arm or a leg, for them to have a train station in this world where a passenger train, heavy rails or light rails, and as you know, there are many technologies that are on the way. And actually, our country is behind when it comes to passenger train projects. And that's why a couple of months ago, I think the U.S. signed a $1.8 billion project with a French company to actually start a high-speed train project on the Northeast corridor between, I believe it's Massachusetts, New York, and Washington, D.C. And I'm sure that in years to come, they're going to spread up to the south. And we are behind China. They have maglev technology, and France, and other countries. So we are trying to play catch up here. I know not Miami is a very small city, but it behooves us, to really stay in the forefront of things so that we can take advantage of everything. And a special thank you to Director Boulay, Eileen Boulay, because when I presented the resolution for us to be part of the trial system, and she came and vouched for us, and she supported them. It's a matter of education and information. People sometimes take decisions out of ignorance because they don't take time to really search and research what they are voting on. So, and I'm glad that the council actually came to their right mind and see to it that it's a very good project. So today we have a very good program, and this is number 8 or number 7? This is number 8, and every time we have it, it's getting more and more interesting. We're getting more experts, people who are actually experts in their field. So we are happy to have a very, very, very good panel today. So just eat, drink, and listen, and get more information about planes, trains, and automobiles, and port tunnel, and so forth. So I'm very excited. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that today's luncheon was sponsored by the North Miami CRA. So Rashi, if you could raise your hand for us. We want to thank the North Miami CRA for the sponsorship. Brought to you by Pastries Art, and that's a local North Miami restaurant. So today's topic again is planes, trains, and automobiles, growth drivers in the age of globalization. Innovation is such a dynamic thing that keeps changing, and we know that innovation impacts transportation in so many ways. Transportation across the different sectors, from the air, from the automobile, from the trains. We do know that within our region, there's somewhat of a renaissance happening. There are plans for passenger trains coming through the South Florida area. We know through the Port of Miami itself, there was such a great P3 partnership that was created several years ago. We're going to hear those things today to truly understand how innovation impacts transportation and in turn impacts economic development. These are the growth drivers that we're talking about. And as the mayor mentioned, if you're educated and you have a better understanding, then you're able to tap into the transformation that's happening and you're able to capitalize on opportunities in our region. So I'm going to be introducing later on in our forum our moderator for today's program. He's Mr. Wayne Summer with Lexus of North Miami. We're actually sitting in one of the largest Lexus dealerships in the entire United States. North Miami certainly has a competitive advantage to have this type of giant partner located within our city. So again, these are opportunities that we tap into. Lexus has been a great neighbor within the city for the local government. Whenever we have forums such as this, they open their doors to North Miami government to allow us to be able to have these discussions and to be able to have these partnerships created. So I want to give a round of applause for Lexus of North Miami for creating.
We prepared the marketing video.
Had your fill of sitting in traffic? Imagine a better way of coping with rush hour without a car or a care in the world. Imagine booking travel on a whim and gliding in comfort with the view of this instead of this. Just imagine being comfortably connected on an express train with a fixed schedule. Just imagine knowing when you'll arrive every time. What if getting there could be as relaxing or productive as being there? Brightline, arriving 2017.
So you actually, so I actually arriving next year, 2017. So what is Brightline? Many of you have read the paper, some of you actually know. I know many of you have spoken to us personally about it. So we're actually establishing two different businesses, and transportation is a big component of it, and it's the inner city passenger rail side of it. That's the operations of it. That's the Brightline brand. And then we have the real estate development side of it. They go hand in hand. One, because the stations are as important for the whole experience of the passenger as is the actual train service, and it's a hospitality business. It's going to be the country's first private passenger rail service. Rest of rail service, Amtrak, Tri-Rail, it's all publicly financed. We are 100% privately financed. It's really designed to serve the fact that we have a lot of tourists, business travelers, and residents that use that corridor. And the stations are going to be a key component of that with the real estate around the stations as well. And so having 4 different stations, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, and then ultimately up to Orlando in phase 2, is going to give us the system to be able to serve those customers that we know South Florida has coming today. And so, happy to say, at 2:45 a.m. this morning, the first train set arrived in West Palm Beach. We made a 3,000-mile journey from Sacramento across the country into Florida. And you'll see videos of that coming up on social media. But it's a big milestone. It's the first time they've delivered a private train system to a U.S. company in many, many years. So it's a big milestone. I think it's a great step in the right direction. One, for our community and the spotlight that we're going to get in our community through the national model. But we believe also that it's a great step just within having the private sector really step up and see this business opportunity and really invest on transportation as a way of making the communities reinvent themselves. Part of that, those train sets, they are 5 train sets. There are 4 cars each, essentially 2 locomotives on either end. They serve about 240 passengers. When we ultimately go to Orlando, it will expand to about 400 passengers. It's going to be a competitive service, so it's going to be competitive to driving and using other forms of traditional transportation. Even to airfare, it's going to be competitive in pricing. It's going to be comfortable. I'm 6'4" and I fit in the seats just fine. It's going to be very connected with Wi-Fi, and it's going to be convenient. It's hourly service. So every hour you'll have a train departing out of Miami and out of every station. Here's the locomotives when we were being tested underway. There's more train sets being developed in California. They're going to be bringing them as they roll off the line. They'll be all completed by March of next year. And part of that, as it rolls off, we're testing them. We've had to build the infrastructure, and that infrastructure, again, we started from West Palm up because that's where our running repair facility is, and that's where the test tracks are. Made our way through Broward and going into, now in January, into Miami-Dade County as the last leg. That's, the infrastructure has been the key component that's going to allow for what the mayor was talking about Tri-Rail. Alex will talk about that, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but the SMART plan talks about how we serve the community with other rail services. It's going to create a capacity within our corridor. We're double tracking the corridor. Part of that, we're upgrading all the grade crossings, new signals. These trains right now, and you might have seen people taking a grade crossing and seeing the gates down, and they swerve around the gates just because they don't want to be inconvenienced by the freight train. That's obviously a very dangerous thing. Part of what we're going to do is we're doing safety improvements that will actually create what's called a quiet zone. And part of that is we won't be able to snake around the grade crossings. That's an important thing because the trains don't blow their horns anymore. But that's because you don't have the ability to bypass the grade crossings. All of those investments are done in cooperation with the MPOs Particularly the MPO here stepped up and put a lot of dollars into making sure that there was a continuous quiet zone throughout Miami-Dade County in cooperation with the dollars and investments we were doing. So then talk a little bit about our stations. The stations are going to be, again, a key component of it. They're going to be memorable. They're going to create these larger public spaces. When you see the Grand Central stations, these are going to be impressive stations. Miami being the jewel for our system. But it also includes development, and that development is underway at the same time. So what you're looking up here, this is an aerial shot of it. The actual station itself is the base of it. It's an elevated train near downtown Miami. If you see Government Center there on the left of the screen, it's going to have, phase 2 has 2 towers that also come up for, we're going to have over 4 million square feet of development there. Mixed uses. You're going to have apartments, offices, retail, and all of that is going to be in a modern look. All those 3 buildings are under construction right now. Those will be probably finished closer to the 2018 timeline. The station itself will be open by 2017, but those are actually what we call the overbuilds. They're actually above the station. And so we continue to build through those. And the station will become a destination with the connectivity having over 10 million people become a destination. So between the connectivity with Tri-Rail, the connectivity with Metro Rail, Metro Mover, and our passengers, this will be a destination for a community and essentially create an intermodal facility like hasn't been seen in South Florida. Part of that destination and part of what we think is going to be interesting about it is our food and beverage side of it. It's going to be an entertainment area. You're going to want to go to Grand Central Station and Miami Central Station just to visit and have dinner, to be able to see entertainment. And the food hall concept is part of that. We actually, I don't know if you guys deal with celebrity chefs, but the Voltaggio brothers have agreed to open up a restaurant, a signature restaurant called Monger, which will be a new concept that hasn't been seen. They came together. These are 2 brothers that couldn't be any more different. One's from the West Coast, one's from the East Coast. They came to South Florida and are putting this here because their parents happen to live here in Florida. So this was a homecoming for them. So this is an important thing. This is going to create something new for our community. Moving on to see a shot of what the station under construction looks like. Alice sees this every day because that's her building right there. But it's well underway. Construction's moving along. This is, as you see the tracks, these are about 2 weeks old, and if you go now, it's totally different. Every day there's more and more. There's steel structures coming out of the ground. You see here, that's part of it. It's taking shape on it. It will be, the first portion of it will have occupancy for testing in April, and then ultimately we will have the trains coming in, and you'll start seeing that all through the system in the beginning of 2017. Additionally, like I said, around the station important, we picked up parcels around there, and we're investing here where we have an office building. We're going to have the first grocery store coming to Overtown that hasn't had an area of this community that hasn't had simple just food, availability to food in a long time, is coming to this mixed-use building that we're building here. Sorry? So, to stay on that slide. So this is a cross-section of the station. And why I show this is to show the integration of the actual station, but more importantly to show that Tri-Rail is coming to be part of the station. So we are taking the tracks, the 3 tracks to my left, and then the 2 tracks to my right are going to be occupied by Tri-Rail. Now that was a complicated deal. So when we talk about bringing Tri-Rail on the FEC, you know, Alice and him lived through this with us. It was a complicated transaction to be able to get all of our local partners, because thinking that you can go to Washington or Tallahassee and they'll write you a big check and we're going to run trains, that's going to be a tough ask. I mean, there are new start dollars you can do it, but to expand services, it's a challenge. And the fact that the local partners stepped up with us as a private sector building it together was important. They actually put their money where their mouth is. They're helping create the connectivity for Tri-Rail today, so that when we open Miami Station in next year, it's actually opening up with Tri-Rail having service coming into it. And so that's an important first step in what they call the coastal link. And they'll speak about the coastal link about it. a little bit more, but that is actually the service where you're going to be able to have travel coming out of downtown Miami up through Aventura. So moving on to Fort Lauderdale. So Fort Lauderdale, that's a rendering of it. Here's the Fort Lauderdale station. And as you can see, it's under construction. Same thing, we've got construction all around it. We've had a whole transit district that is being created by the city of Fort Lauderdale. A lot of other developers as well investing in this area, related, putting up dollars to put apartments. It's changing the neighborhood. It happens to be that we're in a CRA in downtown Miami. We're in a CRA in Fort Lauderdale. It's an area that the community has always wanted to see redevelopment. It's an area that has had challenges getting redevelopment. Well, now you're starting to see redevelopment. There's the station on the inside, going up, escalators. Moving on to West Palm, and in West Palm, similarly, we're in the CRA there as well. So it happens to be all of these stations were in areas where we wanted to see development come through. And in West Palm, we're building our first TOD building as well, where we're building about 240 apartments, just right there next to the station. And that's what we call our inline station. Here's a rendering of what the buildings are going to look like. So we have integrated retail, residential, and connectivity right to the station. And then finally, our running repair facility. That's where the train is right now. So the train's up there getting inspected, and we have our facility where it will be maintained and housed, the train sets, until we get to the phase 2 expansion. We'll have a similar one in Orlando. But this is an important thing. This is going to be where Siemens brings in their train engineers, and they're actually going to be servicing the trains nightly. Jobs, local jobs being created for the community up there as well. And talking about the timeline. We started this process, we started around the roundtable in about 2011. 2012 we announced it. For a project of this scale, for the timing that we've been able to have, where we started the environmental process in late October of 2012, got it finalized in January of 2013, and then actually ordered our trains and began construction in 2014, it's a rapid schedule. But you'll hear it from current elected officials like Commissioner Bogle or Chairman-elect Bogle, who says basically the term limits have done one thing for elected officials and giving them a sense of urgency. In the private sector, we've always had that sense of urgency because we have investors who expect their dollars to be returned to them. And in order to do that, we have to be able to show a schedule that is aggressive enough. And that's the thing, one of the things as a community is we have to demand that sense of urgency. And I also hear it every day when she meets with the commissioners, is they have to get this great plan that they have going, they have to start implementing. We got to stop planning more and implementing a lot faster. And so that's one of the things that you'll see with the private-public partnerships that are going to be happening in the years to come. It's going to be that implementation. And I think as a community, we'll win when we have the private sector stepping up to do that. But with that, I hope I spoke fast enough to keep you on time. I'm happy to either take some questions if you want, or if you want me to introduce the panel. Okay. So I'm going to click on connection there. All right. Thank you very much.
So thank you to Jose again. It's interesting as I looked at the slide, thinking about the idea of having transportation be a growth driver. In each of the cities, you saw how transportation served as a catalyst. You see it during the construction phase that it generates jobs. You see it on a land use level that it changes the mix of clusters around that future train station. You also see it in terms of the quality of life, how people recreate differently, they work differently. If you have a transit system, I lived in the DC area for many years, and for many of my coworkers, we didn't need a car because where you worked and you played and you recreated, everything was within just walking distance or going on public transportation or just using the transit system. So it affects your quality of life in a very real way. So I typically do a show and tell whenever I have these mayor's luncheons that I have to moderate. So for today's show and tell, I have nothing, but I have a question to ask, and there's a door prize attached to that question. So for a transportation forum, I'm certain that there's someone here that took public transportation to get here. So raise your hand if you took public transportation to come to today's forum. There's actually a door prize. It's not $1 million. Okay, so this is very telling. This is very telling. You have some of the area's top experts in our conversation on transportation, and this is really reflective of the culture in our region. I just had a conversation with Eileen before that there's a need for a cultural shift. There's a need for a cultural shift if these plans are going to work, because we're from an area where you drive to get your place of employment, you drive to recreate, you drive to go home, and the mindset still hasn't been embedded that public transportation is an alternative. We see it as an inconvenience. And I intentionally said I could set the door prize at $1 million because I was pretty sure that I probably wouldn't have a taker, and it's indicative. You see it reflected here, even with me offering that there's a door prize that no one could actually claim. So, sorry, nobody got the $1 million today. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Mr. Wayne Sommer forward. He's our moderator for today, and I'll give you a little bit of a background on Wayne. Wayne is the executive sales manager at Lexus of North Miami. Wayne is actually an attorney. That's something I discovered in preparing his introduction. I didn't know that. Wayne is a graduate of the University of Miami. Any hurricanes here? Whoa, we have one. We have two. Okay, that's good. So he's an alumni of the University of Miami and a trained attorney. He's been with Lexus here for 25 years, not at this location, but Lexus itself in Florida for 25 years. And we are so fortunate to have Wayne as our moderator today. He is informed, he is connected, he knows everybody here on the panel, and he can do a proper, and he just met them like 5 minutes ago, and he can do a proper introduction. So I'm going to get out the way so Wayne can unpack the knowledge base and the connections that we have here. And we hope by the time that we leave that someone would have met a new partner in the area of transportation, whether it's by train, whether it's by port, whether it's by Lexus itself, by an automobile. We know we have several contractors, local North Miami contractors that are here. These guys bid $1 million projects out every year. Connect, partner, get to know, get a card. The idea of this forum is to create partnerships, but it's also to further economic development. So I hope within the discussion here, it would be fruitful and you would have gathered something in being here today and leaving. Thank you, Mr. Wayne Sommer.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you, Sam Blatt, for helping put this together. And of course, thank you to Mayor Smith-Joseph for sponsoring this series. It's been an excellent series for the city, and it's not the first one we've had here at Lexus. Coming from an automotive background, I understand the importance of the automobile in social development in the United States over the past century, and even to this day, the automobile industry is a huge economic driver in most developed nations throughout the world. Developing nations focus on improving their automotive industries as a method to drive jobs and exports. Also, in this area alone, having moved here, being the first large Lexus dealership in North Miami in the city, we've attracted other dealerships to come in and compete against us. There is a major project underway directly next door to us. An Audi store is coming in, and there is a Rover, Jaguar, and Range Rover store coming across the street at the Solita facility. So this is going to drive jobs in the area. Again, though I do recognize that the automotive industry cannot be sustained at this level in this community indefinitely. Everybody cannot own a car. The streets are already congested. We have to think more intermodally, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm a huge fan of the aviation sector, represented here by Mr. Zor. I'm also a huge fan of the light rail, the Bright Line, and the All Aboard Florida project. And I've been liking their website since it first came up. I'm very happy to have Mr. Gonzalez here today speaking about the facilities. I've seen some of the stations underway, the architects that have been chosen, the quality of the work that's being done is going to be a huge impact aesthetically, visually, economically to the community, and everybody in this room should be supportive of it. These are huge economic drivers for the community, and will also take some of the cars off the road of the millions of tourists that merely fly into town, rent a car, and drive to Disney World. So that being said, I'd like to introduce the panel here. We have to my immediate right, Alice Bravo, the Director of Transportation and Public Works for Miami-Dade, Next to her, we have Eileen Bouclé, the Executive Director of the Miami-Dade Metropolitan Planning Organization. Christopher Hodkins, with the CEO of the Miami Tunnel, and of course the port being one of the biggest economic drivers here, along with the airport in Miami, which is a huge freight airport, as well as passenger terminals. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that. We have Mr. Aviv Zur, who represents AvBiz and is a huge booster of the aviation industry in South Florida. So I'd like to start with some questions for the panelists. For Ms. Bravo, 95% of travelers in Miami-Dade community commute by passenger car. And here in North Miami, the average commute time is 32 minutes. High volumes of traffic congestion lead to loss of economic productivity, stress on infrastructure, and lack of worker mobility. Can you give the latest update on the progress of area transit and alternative transportation development in Miami-Dade, and what specific timelines are in place for the year 2017?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. Yes, we have a lot of work to do. And very recently we announced a SMART plan, Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Plan, and we're going to show a little video about that, and then I'll answer the rest of the question.
Would we like to show the video now?
Yes.
Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit, SMART Plan. The Miami-Dade Metropolitan Planning Organization has prioritized the growth and expansion of mass transit in order to address congestion and provide alternate transportation choices for the residents and visitors of our region. As the most populous county in the state of Florida, with millions of visitors each year, the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit, or SMART Plan, identifies 6 rapid transit corridors that directly support the mobility of our future population and employment growth. A critical component of the plan is a network of express buses that will seamlessly connect the SMART Plan corridors with our existing Metro Rail system. The SMART Plan was the result of a comprehensive year-long effort by the MPO Transit Solutions Committee that included hosting a transit workshop and competition of ideas, as well as participating in peer exchanges with other regions. These community-wide efforts created strong consensus, which led to unanimous support and adoption of the SMART Plan by the MPO Governing Board on April 21, 2016. The 6 rapid transit corridors identified in the SMART Plan have long been documented in Miami-Dade County's Long-Range Transportation Plan and are consistent with the People's Transportation Plan. In addition, the Long-Range Transportation Plan was amended by the MPO Governing Board by a unanimous resolution that set as highest priority the advancement of rapid transit corridors and transit supportive projects in Miami-Dade County. These corridors are supported by the Miami-Dade MPO, Miami-Dade County Mayor, the Department of Transportation and Public Works, as well as multiple other entities. The adopted SMART Plan has been approved to advance the corridors to Step 3 Project Development and Environmental Phase in order to pursue federal and state transportation funds. During the project development phase, more detailed analysis will be completed in order to determine the most appropriate transit solution for each corridor. Project stakeholders, including the general public, businesses, and elected officials, will be engaged during the process. The current effort underway is being led by the MPO Fiscal Priorities Committee, as its members are working to identify funding for each of the 6 rapid transit corridors identified in the SMART Plan. The process includes the development of a comprehensive financial plan that will be based on the unique needs of each corridor, including the capital investment, operations, and maintenance costs needed to advance the SMART Plan corridors. Similar to other regions, this may involve a multi-year phasing plan for implementation. Beyond the SMART Plan is a SMART region that is interconnected and builds upon the backbone of the existing transit network, meeting the needs of regional commuter travel patterns. This regional connectivity is supported by multiple transportation partners across the region. Another integral part of the SMART Plan is that it includes a connected network of express buses that will expand the reach of the entire transit network. This comprehensive approach will allow the plan to support future population and employment growth in the region. To make the SMART Plan a reality, the MPO will be leading coordination with federal, state, and local transportation agencies, in order to implement the required policy and funding framework necessary to advance the plan. In a joint statement, Miami-Dade County Mayor Carlos Jimenez, MPO Chairman John Monestime, MPO Vice Chairman Francis Suarez, and MPO Fiscal Priorities Chairwoman Daniela Levine Cava affirmed that there's much work ahead to accomplish our vision, but it all starts now with a unified voice and unified resolve to implement a plan that addresses all the needs of our community.
So that's the big picture. That's where we need to go. We're working on the conceptual financial plan to implement the 6 corridors. The first part of that is refining the alternatives so that we can define how much they're going to cost. And then we're working with federal, the state partners to identify all the different funding that's available to us, and that way we can demonstrate how we implement the plan, what the phasing is, and what the timelines are. But the very first piece of this will actually be up and running by the end of 2017, and that's an express bus service that's going to run along 836 out to the Dolphin Mall. So by an express bus service, that means you start at one place, you end at another, and you're not supposed to be stuck in traffic when you're doing that. Many of you might be familiar with the 95 express bus service that runs in the express lanes on I-95. Well, the express bus on 836 is going to be slightly different in that when the bus leaves the park and ride lot that'll be just west of the Dolphin Mall, it'll get on the highway and it'll be in a regular lane. And when the bus encounters congestion, the bus is going to switch over to the highway shoulder, the emergency lane, and continue cruising at about 35 miles an hour past all the congestion on the traffic. As we mentioned earlier, we do need a cultural change here. I think as we have more and more pieces of a plan in place, it creates that synergy, that connectivity, where it makes it easier to get from point to point, and we will have that cultural change. But really, I consider this the world's greatest marketing challenge. How do we get a community built around cars, in love with their cars, to use transit? The way to do it, you have to save time. That's what I've learned in the last year and a half in this position. Very early on, we took some of our Metro Rail trains early in the morning and in the afternoon, and we created an express train that bypasses several stops and takes you straight to and from downtown, and probably saves you 10 to 12 minutes on each leg by taking the express train. Great support. People were up on the platforms very early in the morning saying, "Where's the express train? Where's the express train?" Because time is perhaps our most valuable asset. So this is going to take the collaboration of our entire community to move forward with this plan in its totality. But at the same time, we're doing things to improve the roadway network. So we've started by improving the synchronization of the signals corridor by corridor. In August, we unveiled our Transportation Management Center. So that's a center where we have a video wall. We're receiving data from cameras that we're installing on all the major corridors. We have traffic engineers at different stations responsible for different parts of the county. They're receiving data from Waze and other programs that's telling them what's happening in the field in conjunction with the cameras. And with that, if there's an accident, they're changing the signal timing, green and red phasing at different signals to keep the traffic flowing, on other avenues as people seek detours. And we started implementing the first phase of our adaptive signal program. So what's an adaptive signal? A smart signal. Your regular signal today has pre-programmed timing. It turns from red to green based on a traffic engineer's study, and it'll have a preset timing, maybe from 7 to 9 a.m., maybe a different one from 9 to noon, and all that pre-programmed planning or signal timing runs its cycle during the course of the day. Now what happens when a left lane is backed up? Well, that signal doesn't know anything. What happens when a car breaks down in the right-hand lane? That signal doesn't know anything. So with the smart signals, it has more computing power, and we can add eyes and ears in terms of detectors, so we can see where cars are backing up, speed detectors, so we can see if traffic is slowing down. And so with these cameras and detectors, now the smart signal not only follows its pre-planned timing cycle, but it can adjust itself based on what's happening with the cars. So if a left turn lane is backing up and blocking a through lane, our smart signals could be able to detect that and maybe give a longer green turn arrow so that we can clear that out and keep the traffic flowing. So the smart signal does two things. It maximizes the efficiency of the individual signal, but it also is in communication with all the signals on the corridor to maintain the synchronization. Because just like we do pre-planned signal timing, we make an assumption as to how fast a vehicle is going through the corridor at different times of the day. So we might assume that during rush hour, cars are going 15 miles an hour. But what happens when it's 5? The adaptive signal can change itself. What happens when it's 30 miles an hour? Because traffic is light that day. Well, the signal timing can adapt itself and maintain that synchronization. So we improve the efficiency of the signal and we improve the efficiency of the corridor as a whole. And the goal is, with the synchronization, for you to hit as many green lights as possible when you're going where you're going. I like that personally. With that?
Excellent. Thank you. Our next question I'm addressing to Eileen Bousselet. Tri-Rail Coastal Link is a public partnership that aims to connect passenger rail service to many of the historic downtowns in South Florida along the Florida East Coast Railway, including a proposed stop in North Miami at 125th Street. Given that North Miami residents spend an average of more than $8,500 a year on transportation costs, can you explain how a future station will affect economic growth and produce opportunities for North Miami businesses?
Certainly. So, excellent question. Besides the obvious benefit of that annual cost to the family in terms of owning and operating and maintaining a vehicle, besides that obvious transfer of that funds into the economy as opposed to ownership of a car if they become transit dependent, there are many, many other benefits to having a transit station in the city and along the corridor. For example, you have job and income growth as a result of spending on the capital side of developing this project, and then the operation and maintenance of this type of transit commuter rail. It's estimated that approximately $1 billion of transit capital investment equates to approximately 36,000 jobs annually per year. So you have reduced traffic congestion on the roadways also as a benefit once you have a project like this that enters into the community. In addition, you're providing the community improved access to jobs, education, healthcare, and other destinations. You have other productivity gains from the economy because now you're providing the employers in the area with accessibility to their employees. So you have lower turnover rates for employees in areas where there's transit use and the transportation is efficient and effective. And then you have employers increasing productivity and efficiency by having access to the workforce. Increase in higher wages and new jobs based on the type of businesses, transit-oriented development that you're able to attract. And other indirect benefits include increased road safety, just based on the savings from reduction in traffic crashes. If you're reducing total volume of traffic, you'd be surprised how much money we spend, public funds, a year based on traffic incidences in terms of clearing the road, not just to the personal family in terms of your own expenses and any incident, but also to the community in terms of our dollars in addressing to emergency situations, and also the cost delay of traffic for every incident that occurs. There's environmental quality benefits by the reduction in emissions, by increased use of transit, and reduced costs on other transportation facilities such as parking. And last but not least, the efficient land use development that occurs in transit-oriented development brings a lot of economic development to the community when you start pairing efficient land use and you start locating commercial, residential, I heard earlier, live, work, and play as far as being an important aspect in having transit provide you access to all facets of your life in terms of livability. So you see in areas with these type of transit projects that the livability index is higher when you have modal choice, when you have a transit option and you're not 100% exclusively dependent on your vehicle.
Thank you. The next is the CEO of the Miami Tunnel. Mr. Hodgkins, the Port of Miami Tunnel project was a highly complex public-private partnership that created a marriage between various agencies. What impact has this project had on traffic patterns and the local economy?
Impact on traffic. In fact, for the past 2 years, we've taken 80% of the trucks out of downtown Miami. And that's not only when we talk about carbon footprint and time saved, but it's also according to plan. So I'm learning a lot today, by the way. I never knew the SMART plan actually was an acronym. I thought the SMART plan was called that because Alice and Aileen were in charge of it. And some of you don't know this, but the Miami Tunnel, the person at FDOT, that was the project manager for the Miami Tunnel, was Alice. And it was her leadership and her foresight, and quite frankly, her engineering wizardry that helped us get this thing moving. So I can't think of anything worse than to be in charge of traffic in Miami-Dade County. It must be a phenomenal responsibility. But I can't think anything better than having these two wonderful leaders in charge of it. So I really feel good about that. So as far as traffic goes, we're doing just what we want. We want the trucks out of downtown. We want to make sure that when they're moving their cargo east to west, they do it quicker, better, safer. They do that in a free tunnel. They do that in what's called an availability payment, one of the first in the country, and of course one of the first public-private partnerships in Florida. We learned a lot working in Miami, and that is that you need to partner with stakeholders like folks that are here today. I saw a great leader, Eric Knowles is here from the Miami-Dade Chamber, and so we worked with the community, so much so that we hired over 7,000 people, and those 7,000 people, 83% of them were from the Miami-Dade County. And of that 83% from Miami-Dade County, the diversity was a mirror of our community. So we had people that had great experience, and we had people that we trained, and now are all part of the building boom that we see resurging again, and on that little roller coaster called Miami-Dade. But we think for traffic-wise, we've done exactly what we're supposed to do. We've exceeded our expectations. And as far as the economy, our billion-dollar tunnel had $400 million that we invested right with local vendors and contractors. So we're proud of what we've done. We just this year, last month, won the National Gold Medal for Operational Excellence. And so we're continuing with that theme of paying attention. But all of this couldn't have happened without the leadership of folks like Alice. So we're doing as the plan had suggested, and we really enjoy being part of the Miami-Dade community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodgkins. Spectacular. All right. Okay. My next question is addressed to Aviv Zor. Aviv is the CEO of AvBiz Aerospace and a recognized leader in the aviation community. In February of this year, North Miami Mayor and Council designated a portion of Northwest 7th Avenue as the Chinatown Cultural Arts and Innovation District, and subsequently met with Chinese investors both in China and here in North Miami. Because there has been such a rapid increase in Chinese and East Asian investment into the Miami market, can you describe what steps are being taken to implement direct flights from Miami to China, and what are the biggest challenges to overcome in making direct flights from Miami to China a reality?
Pronounce it correctly. It's China.
China.
We need to follow our new leader. It's China.
China.
So,
one China or the two China?
I just wanna, this is a good question, and actually it's a timely question. I just wrote an article for the Greater Miami Aviation Association, and the title of the article is Enter the Dragon, and those of you who are a little older remember that old Bruce Lee movie, but the article was not about karate. The article was about the trade relations between the U.S. and China, and how China has become our largest trade partner, and we have become their largest trade partner. There's enormous amount of business going between us and China, and as you heard from Wayne, they're also coming to North Miami. And I actually think that despite statements from candidate Donald Trump, I think that the next 4 years and maybe beyond are going to see an explosion of business between us and China. I think it's going to be much easier to do business with China because Trump is a businessman. From my end of the industry, I see a lot of deals from Chinese companies coming here seeking to acquire American companies. Why? Number one, we created aviation. So they are expanding in an unbelievable pace. You're talking about Boeing predicting that in the next 20 years, they're going to need another 3,000 commercial airplanes in China. These are staggering numbers. They're going to need 20,000 new pilots. And for new airplanes and new routes, you need mechanics, you need facilities, you need infrastructure, you need flight crews. This is going to be an explosion, and they don't have all that technology in China. So they got to come to the United States, and what better place to come to than Miami, which we fondly call the Mecca of aviation. And so I see a lot of companies who are coming here, not only looking to expand into a new market in the US and Latin America, because we're the gateway to Latin America, but also to bring that technology that they're missing into China and integrate it so that they can facilitate their growth. The question about direct routes is a good question that's has been addressed by our local Miami International Airport executive, Dr. Emilio Gonzalez and his staff, Mayor Jimenez. There's been a few missions to China, and they have come here as well. We're talking to a number of Chinese airlines now. Hainan Airways, Southern China, Eastern China, China Air, all are in the mix as far as creating direct flights from China, mainland China, into here. Unfortunately, we have a problem that's called Department of Transportation. And Department of Transportation in DC has a certain amount of allocated routes, direct routes, from foreign countries into the United States. And all those allocations from China have been filled up. So while there is not going to be any immediate direct route from China to the United States, we are talking to them about a route that's going to go through Vancouver and then Vancouver directly to Miami. And we also have a route right now to Miami International Airport, which, by the way, is the #1 cargo airport in the world. We have a route that goes from Cathay Pacific, from Hong Kong through Anchorage into Miami. So this is a long answer to a question, but I think the answer is we're working on trying to create those routes. They're going to happen. It takes a little time. There's a new government in place. There's going to be an expansion of business.
Thank you. Okay. My next question is, Reed County invests millions of dollars in capital projects each year. What type and size jobs does the county typically procure? And how can a local North Miami business learn more about the procurement process?
Well, the best way to learn about procurement at Miami-Dade County is to go to Miami-Dade County's website. There's a procurement page, and there are a number of pathways somebody could take. You have to register as a vendor with the county, but there's also opportunities to register as a small business enterprise, SBE. And often our projects have a certain percentage of the work that must go to an SBE project or company, and then there are some completely SBE set-aside contracts as well. So in the Department of Transportation and Public Works, since that includes our whole entire transit system, our procurements are vast and varied. We'll be procuring a bridge repair, a bridge replacement, a new road construction, or a milling and resurfacing of a road. We might have some type of drainage improvement on a canal, or we might be procuring brand new Metro Rail cars, such as the new cars that are being produced at a facility in Medley. That's a $330 million contract. We have all kinds of structural, roadway, and also high-end electronics with regard to the transit system.
Thank you. Eileen. Earlier this year, Miami-Dade Board of County Commissioners passed an ordinance authorizing and regulating ride-sharing companies like Uber and Lyft to operate in the county. While these ride-sharing apps are the most notable examples, can you share some updates on other innovative transportation approaches, including the Connected Autonomous Vehicle Program and other initiatives? How will these developments affect the local tourist and hospitality industry?
So in addition to the Board of County Commission passing this ordinance, I'd like to recognize Mayor Joseph for a minute. He is also a board member on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and in his role as a board member of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, he passed unanimously, along with all of our MPO board members, the board unanimously passed a resolution creating a connected and autonomous vehicle working group here in Miami-Dade County. So the Miami-Dade MPO is the first MPO in the state to do this, and the board has 2 resolutions strongly supporting this type of technology being developed here in Miami-Dade County. So I just want to recognize the mayor for his leadership in this area. So the MPO has conducted 3 working group sessions, and we have national, regional, and local representation across multiple industries, including the insurance industry, the auto industry, of course, and all spectrums of technology. And where we're at currently is trying to, we are working in conjunction, the county is leading, and the MPO has supported by resolution an application to USDOT to designate Miami-Dade County as a pilot location, a designation of official piloting grounds for this technology. So we're very aggressively pursuing that with all of our partner agencies. And finally, not to really tell you what you already know about Lyft and Uber, but really that represents the on-demand component of transportation. And if you think about it, that is what your personal automotive vehicle provides to you. So since the earliest days of Henry Ford and the very first road that's out there, our use as citizens and residents, our view and our use of the roadway has always been an on-demand model. When we're on our infrastructure, it's an on-demand request. We're going when we need to go, where we need to go, when we need to go. And right now, that on-demand model is where the automobile has very well met that demand. So our Uber and Lyft technologies, on-demand, connected, autonomous vehicle, can also be inserted into that model and in your first and last mile connection, so that you can use mass transit on those corridors that are mass transit corridors. And that kind of technology will help increase and provide additional choices to the residents.
Thank you. Mr. Hodgkins, North Miami is only 20 minutes away from the Port of Miami via the Miami Tunnel, but some small business owners may perceive the Port of Miami and the Miami Tunnel as far removed projects, benefiting billion-dollar multinational corporations. Given that 90% of Miami business, North Miami business, are considered small businesses, in what ways can small and medium-sized businesses located in North Miami capitalize on the incredible infrastructure and access that the Port of Miami and the Miami Tunnel offer?
Great. The Port of Miami is the second largest economic engine in Miami-Dade County. And with the tunnel, we're preparing for the post-Panamex ships that are now arriving. And it really is. I mean, they're correct if they think it's a billion-dollar multinational opportunity. But within that, there is a whole infrastructure to bring in local small businesses. There's a website on the Port of Miami. There's a leader of business development named Eric Olafson, who is one of the most helpful, friendly people. If you are a business and you are not doing business in some way with the port, you need to leave here, get on that website, find out what the opportunities are, and be part of that, or you're missing the boat, so to speak. No pun intended. But that's what it's all about. It's about economic opportunity. And that tunnel is about getting those goods to 75% of the United States within 2 days. There's all sorts of little facts that come in. Like one of the things at the airport is they're the #1 importer of asparagus at the airport. The Port of Miami is the #1 importer of avocados. So there's all sorts of little niche markets within what happens at that port, just like there is at the airport. So avail yourself of those opportunities, especially for small local businesses, because it's not just an idea. There's actually a program to help you out, and you need to be part of that. Thank you.
Mr. Zor, I have in my hand here a copy of this week's Aviation Week, which I received a day or two ago. And just for the audience's edification, there's a full-page ad taken out by Enterprise Florida, which is obviously the state of Florida, entitled Boundless Heights. For aviation and aerospace companies in Florida, business isn't just good, it's soaring. And they make the point that Florida ranks #1 for aerospace manufacturing because companies have the resources they need to succeed here and an industry workforce of 85,000 and a talent pool of 50,000 active and separated military members. Florida also has the second largest number of aviation and aerospace establishments, which creates a robust supply chain. So when it comes to industry growth, apparently in aviation, the sky's the limit. You are an immediate past chair of the Beacon Council's Aviation Committee and have served in that role for many years. With our proximity to Opa-locka Executive Airport, Miami International Airport, and Fort Lauderdale Airport, North Miami could be a real player in the aviation industry. What opportunities do you see presently for local North Miami businesses looking to get into the aerospace industry?
So since you mentioned the Beacon Council, I want to recognize Yap Donath and Diane from the Beacon Council, and Yap is the economist for the Beacon Council. And he'll be the first to tell you that over the past 25 years, 25%, a quarter of all the jobs and capital investment that has been done through projects of the Beacon Council went to aviation. Most people don't know that we have in and around metropolitan Miami over 500 aviation-related businesses. Because you tend to think just about an airline, but in addition, Miami has become the training center for airlines in the world. We have on 36th Street 3 major facilities. One is Airbus, the other one is Boeing, and the third one is owned by ANA, which is All Nippon Airways, a Japanese company, and they're training thousands of pilots every single year. Think about the economic development and the impact of thousands and thousands of pilots coming here with their families for training for 7 weeks. They're staying in hotels, they're eating in restaurants, they're taking Uber or Lyft. So it's a tremendous economic impact. How this started is interesting. Small story with Boeing. Then Commissioner Carlos Jimenez in 2005, we went to the Paris Air Show. First time he has met with Boeing. 2 years later, we met them again, now together with Governor Scott. And we pretty much convinced them to come to Miami and expand their training facility. They now have 20 simulators here of all their airplanes, the popular airplanes from 787 to 737. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a progress, it's a process. 4 years ago, together with the mayor and Governor Scott, we met with ATR, which is a manufacturer of commuter airplanes, regional airplanes. they moved their American headquarters to Miami following this meeting with them. So the answer is there's tons of supportive services, maintenance, repair and overhaul shops, training, you got distributors, you got people who part airplanes and sell those parts. These are support services that don't need to be on an airport. They could be in any community. I know dozens of them that are in Doral, they're in Medley, they're in Homestead. They follow where the incentives are. They follow where the rent is cheap. And so for North Miami to attract those businesses, you got to participate in trade shows. And I invite the mayor to join us at the Paris Air Show this year. It's in July in Paris. Also, the Beacon Council, together with IATA, we are going to have a symposium in May. It's called Wings of Change. We're going to have about 400 executives from all around the world that are going to converge on Miami. And we're going to promote aviation in Miami. And so, again, the answer is you got to work on it. You got to attract people. And if you build it, they will come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'd like to open the session now for questions and answers from the panel. Gentleman in the rear.
Good evening. Good afternoon. Ms. Bravo, read in the paper.
Leading the way with the streetcar project. I think it's very normal to get pushback on major projects. I've been doing this as a consultant or as FDOT or now as the county for a long time, leading these big projects, and there's always pushback of some sort. And so that's the benefit of the study process. You have community involvement, community engagement, and yes, everybody talks about how long a study takes and why can't we just go build something right away. Well, you know, this kind of really underscores the benefit of the study process and getting feedback and input along the way as you formulate what the outcome is going to be. That being said, that streetcar loop in Miami Beach was part of the Beach Corridor project. That's one of the Smart Plan corridors. So one way or the other, this is going to get done. And we're going to continue to plow forward and evaluate ways to provide that link across the causeway in the most cost-effective manner.
Just a question for you also. You know, there's so much talk about all of the different corridors you're trying to open up and who gets prioritized and how that gets laid out. And, you know, it seems that a lot of politics are involved as well as costs and all the analysis you guys have to go through. But, you know, when are we going to start to see some of the results of what you guys are studying?
I'm going to turn this one over to Ms. Clay, but I want to say one little thing. You know, for maybe 25 years here, we've been talking about which corridor, this corridor, that corridor. Last year, we went to Denver, where they're moving forward with multiple corridors. And the executive director of the transit agency there kind of told me the story of what happened in Denver. And that, I think, has helped formulate our strategy to a certain extent. You know, there they passed the sales tax measure, where they promised 5 or 6 big projects all at the same time. The executive director told me shortly after the sales tax measure passed, they realized the projects cost more than that they originally thought. The revenues from the sales tax were less than what they had projected, and so they realized they couldn't build everything at the same time, and they had to phase the projects in. And I said, well, how did you maintain the consensus? How did you figure out, you know, which project to build first and still keep the community together? And he said, well, it was simple. You know, the projects that were funded went forward first, and those were the projects with the highest ridership or ease of implementation, different factors. But the other thing was we had a financial plan that showed how we would ultimately build all the projects. So, you know, it becomes an arm wrestling match when people think there's only enough funding for 1 or 2 of the projects. But if we can clearly demonstrate in our financial plan how all projects get implemented, I think the phasing then becomes a very reasonable discussion.
So to add to this great answer, which is where we're at today, why we have really 6 projects, is because when you look at all the successful regions across the nation, those regions that are really advancing transit, that are building transit, that have good ridership and economic development, if you look at how they're doing it, every single region is really advancing what we call a program of projects. No one's talking about what is the one project we're going to build. No one's talking about what is the one project that's going first. No, it is very comprehensive and it includes the total need of the region, and we refer to that as a program of projects. So what happened this year, which was key, and again I give credit to my board member, Mayor Joseph, who was part of the board and MPO board that unanimously passed a resolution endorsing a comprehensive program of projects, transit projects for Miami-Dade County. What we find across the nation is that more than one transit project, it's perfectly viable, and as we do the financial analysis and put the financial plan together, that is perfectly within the realm of expectation that we can be advancing more than one project at the same time. It's really a false assumption to say that we can only do one project or what is the one project. Absolutely not. Right now, the Bay Area, San Francisco, is advancing a program of 9 transit projects ranging from bus rapid transit to light rail to heavy commuter rail. They're advancing that over a 12-year period. And 5 of those 9 projects received new federal transportation funds to help them build it. Los Angeles has a program of 6 projects similar to us. They're looking at 5 light rail projects, 1 commuter rail project. That's being advanced over an 8-year period. Of their 6 projects, 4 of them received new federal transportation funds. Very similar to us because we have a program of 6 projects, of which 5 are light rail and or appropriate technology, and 1, which is what we were talking about on the Northeast Corridor, is commuter rail. So, and I can go on and on. You know, you have the Northeast area advancing, you have Boston advancing a program of 5 projects, you have Texas advancing, Houston, a program of 4 projects. And so what we've done this year is structured ourselves for success. We have a program of projects here, and we're going to pursue federal and state funding to make sure that we can advance the entire plan.
All right, we can have one more.
That's Dr. Frank from Radio Continental Power FM. So we know they want all the federal funds, so they keep cutting budget. So to push those projects in the future, do you see raise tax to the citizen of Miami?
And the history of that was that back in 2002, there was a People's Transportation Plan approved by the public. And that People's Transportation Plan had many different improvements, a lot of which have been done. 20% of that half-cent sales tax goes to municipalities for them to implement projects. You know, and the promise back then was that these 6 corridors, pretty much what we're talking about, would be built as elevated metro rail. And that would cost several times more than the types of alternatives we're talking about today. You know, so we want to be very realistic, and we want to exhaust, you know, the federal and the state participation. And I think we also are looking at financial structures such as public-private partnerships that let us finance things long-term. You know, so I think the last thing on anybody's list is some kind of tax. But if there's no other way to get around that, that will be presented to the public for its consideration before any decisions are made.
Actually, seeing it happen recently in that election in Broward. So even though the 5-cent sales tax was small, but in the future, if you want to expand those projects, so did you foresee the same things happening in Broward this year might happen in our ballots in Miami-Dade?
We have a key difference right now. Here in Miami-Dade County, we have a very strong consensus. And the Miami-Dade Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the agency that oversees federal funding for transportation and identifies the priorities, the MPO board has unanimously endorsed this comprehensive program of projects as the #1 priority for Miami-Dade County, because if you look at the county and the region as a whole, you'll see that as far as the highway roadway network and the build out of that network successfully over the last 30 years has not really been balanced with the build out of a transit network. So what the priority is now is to build the transit network so that we can preserve mobility, because the single occupant vehicle is unsustainable on our roadways. We cannot build our way out of that. We're a 2.7 million population with 300,000 new residents coming shortly. And if you look at our population base and you compare it with other similar populations in metropolitan areas, and you look at a list of 20, we're on the bottom 5 of that list in terms of rail miles per population, per metropolitan area. And I really want to bring out really our closest, if you will, competitor, if you will, in terms of going after the same federal transportation funds that we want, really is Atlanta. They're the closest urban area in terms of economy and a population to us, and they just passed a penny tax. And they have a program of 9 projects that they are ready to move on. But that was a process that took many, many years, where they completed their environmental permitting process to make them eligible to go after the federal funds that we here in Florida, as a donor state and a donor community, that we are looking at for our SMART plan. We want to make sure that we're getting our federal share or bringing federal funds here to South Florida to be able to implement our plan.
One of the things that we heard in one of the last mayor's luncheon was the huge percentage of people who arrive here. I mean, we're talking a lot about residents, but the huge percentage of people that arrive here as tourists via air, and just relying so heavily on that seems to be also unsustainable. It seems that having more points of access for tourists to come into Miami, is there any, I mean, the Bright Line achieves the goal of having people arrive in Miami and get up to Orlando, but what about bringing more people here through other forms of transportation,
I think that's,
not cars?
And I think that's an excellent question, because really you've brought up a critical point when we're talking about transit. Because either you're focused on building a transit network for your workforce commute, for your residents, or you build a transit network around tourism and major destinations and points of interest. And you see where our major congestion issues and what's really the greatest impact to our economy right now is really our congestion and related to workforce commute and our economy. So we're really looking at building the framework, the base network of the transit to facilitate our residents and primarily our workforce commute and our workforce needs. However, lucky for us that a lot of our tourism destinations coincide with the network that we are already looking, just because of our unique geography and how our land headers are actually placed. Everything's connecting to the airport, first of all, so you have that main point of access where you now can facilitate the tourism side. But to be clear, the main focus here is the workforce commute. Once you start addressing that and providing mobility options, you start opening up your network for all your other economic activity, including freight mobility and other needs that we have to make sure we continuously have our level of service at an acceptable level here.
I'd like to take a moment and thank East Coast Industries and Brightline, Alice Bravo, Director of Transportation and Public Works for Miami-Dade, Christopher Hodgkins, CEO of the Miami Tunnel, Aviv Zur, CEO of Avbiz Aerospace, and Eileen Bousselet, I hope one time I'll get it correctly, Executive Director of Miami-Dade Metro Planning and Organization. I would also like to thank all our guests and honored members of the community who are here participating in this seminar. I hope that we get an opportunity to host many more of the mayor's events here at Lexus in North Miami, and we welcome you all to attend. Thank you.
All right, thank you again to our panelists. This has been very enlightening, and I'm excited to say that we have an A team in Miami-Dade County. We have the Alice and Eileen A team, and I'm excited to hear about the smart plants and excited to hear about the on-demand technology. I'm so thrilled to hear that you actually have economic development projects coming out from the port, and I'm excited to know that for the airport we are still one of the greatest international hubs. So that certainly puts us in the center and in the middle of the market, and North Miami is open for business is what I'd like to endorse today. So thank you all. I'm going to invite our city manager, Mr. Larry Spring, forward to give his closing remarks.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. These luncheons are very important to our mayor, and it's something that we want to continue, particularly when you bring esteemed panelists as this group. I feel very close to this group because Alice and I have worked together. That little port tunnel that you run, I actually signed the agreement, so that's near and dear to my heart. Before I close, I'd like to thank Pastry Arts for providing lunch, and to thank the CT&D department for putting these lunches together. You guys do an excellent job. Tanya, Sam, and the rest of your staff, so I really appreciate it. And again, just thank the community for coming out. These discussions are extremely important to us. It gives you guys exposure to other of our partner agencies around the county. Comes up with some great ideas sometimes from these meetings, and we're able to network and interact. So with that, thank you all for coming and participating, and we look forward to the next time.